Yay!
All right. Woohoo.
Oh,
Hello,
it just
everybody.
I'm cussing a lot. That's what it is.
Right. All right. Hey, looks like we're up and running. So yeah. Hi everyone in the chat. Thanks for joining us. My name is Teresa. I am the Canadian Whiskey Smith on Instagram. We are being joined, of course, tonight with Gretchen from Texas Whiskey Life, Sarah from the Whiskey Crusaders, Sam from I Whiskey She Wines, and our extra special guest, Heather from the Cocktail Contessa. So tonight, we thought, well, with the holiday season coming up, not everybody likes to drink their whiskey straight. And sometimes it's nice to be able to have a few cocktails or to be able to share our love and passion, using a cocktail, because sometimes that's easier for our friends who don't drink cask strength. Everybody got a couple friends? Anyway,
I think we all have a couple of those friends.
I got a couple of friends that they're like, yeah, if you can mix it with something, I'll drink your whiskey, but that's about it. So anyways, I don't know how we want to start this exactly, but hello.
Well, it looks like
You
we've got a
want
whole
to start
lot.
with me making a cocktail?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Well, I know that you guys are all whiskey aficionados, and you all really like cocktails where you can taste your whiskey, right? So you want to use higher proof whiskeys. You want to use ingredients that don't really detract from it at all. So I was going to start with one that is made with Pikesville rye. It's going to be a take on old fashioned. So it's going to be Pikesville rye, a little bit of Demerara simple syrup, and then some smoke and chili bitters. Ooh. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting this together. Yeah, the smoke and chili bitters is really interesting because it adds a little bit of a heat that you can't really, it's hard to identify when you're actually drinking it. And the heat in there is really nice. In addition, because the Pikesville rye is such a higher proof rye, it's a really good combination. So I'm going to start with 2 ounces of the Pikesville rye. And I like to do a half ounce of simple syrup when I do my old fashions. And this is just, you can either use brown sugar to make your simple syrup, or this is made with raw or Demerara sugar. So I've got a half ounce of that in there. And then I'm going to throw in some of these. It's called, the brand name is Hella Bitters, and it's called their smoke and chili bitters. I don't know if you can see that. And I just put in a couple, 3 dashes in here. And I'm going to grab a little ice so we can mix it.
So what exactly is a dash? Heather, so what's a dash? Because I always worry about that when I grab the Angostura and I'm shaking it. I'm like, I don't know how much is enough. How do you know?
Yes. So to complicate it even further, some bitters come in little drop bottles, so you have to do it by drops. And then you have bitters that are all different kind of sizes. Like the Feedback Brothers bitters are the larger bottle. The Hella's bitters are a little bit smaller. And I will tell you also that the lower your bitters get into the container, the larger each dash is that comes out. So when you open a fresh bottle of bitters, you might need 3, 4, 5 dashes to get what you would take with 2 or 3 lower down in the actual bottle. So as you use the bottle and it's a dash, you will actually have to use less of it as the liquid goes further down into the bitters bottle.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just mix this until it's nice and chilled. Are you guys making cocktails while I'm doing this? Or are you guys sipping neat?
I'm getting ready to have Josh make me a cocktail. I put in the chat for people to vote on which bourbon to use. So the choice I put up were Iron Root Promethean, of course.
I've got my cocktail.
What's going on? I got
fancy shit.
And then for me, then Still Austin. This is their first release, bottle batch 1. So the chat can vote. Then I will send Josh to make me a cocktail.
So I've got my handy dandy Whiskey Crusaders style cocktail here. We've got some Stag Junior with a garnish of bacon.
Nice. I love Stag Junior. I will tell you, for people who like high proof cocktails, it is awesome in a cocktail.
I've got
that's great.
I've got my Eleanor, and I've got a whole bunch of different bitters from one of my local companies. So I'm using the charred cedar. And then I've also got a local company that makes all kinds of different flavored simple syrups. So Porter's Tonic. So I'm just going to use their original. And I don't know. I'm winging it.
Well, if you're going to use the Stag Junior, using one of those tonics, you can get a tonic that's kind of strong, a syrup that's strong, because it's not going to detract from the taste and from it, because Stag is so strong.
So Teresa informed me today that a fun tip is you add a garnish and it's a cocktail, right?
Yeah.
Is that the case?
I think that works.
Yeah.
If you had bitters and a garnish, it's definitely a cocktail. Or if you had a second ingredient besides just ice, it's definitely a cocktail. To garnish this, I just used a simple orange peel that you squeeze over the top and rub on the rim.
And if you guys haven't actually dunked your bacon in whiskey, it's really good.
Josh, make me some bacon.
I've got
Not sitting there.
I'm going to throw moonshine fairy
Wait,
in
I
on top.
guess I have to formalize my request when I'm asking Josh to do something, and I need to get this app for Marcia. But
Teresa, I love you.
service me some.
Yes.
Okay, so are you putting the bacon actually in the whiskey bottle, or are you just putting it in as a garnish?
I'm just putting it in as a garnish.
You know, in the whiskey bottle, it might make some really interesting whiskey flavored or bacon flavored whiskey. I mean, that's a thought. If you have a bottle you're not like in love with, you could add something to infuse it.
Add some crumbled bacon.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Well, it tastes really good with some Stag Junior on it.
Uh-huh. So cheers, you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm getting so my girl Stellar Matrix who's in the chat brought me this apple pie whiskey. So I was gonna drink it straight, but now I have Bobby bringing me down some seltzer shit, and we're gonna mix it all together and see what happens. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice.
And Josh made me. I think this is a cider drink. It's cider with rumble in it. If Josh, you can correct me in the chat. I think they do a variation on this at Crowded Barrel, Bang and Feather. So I have borrowed the recipe. Stolen. I'm okay with it.
Oh, Haley's in the, Haley Wigington is in the
Hey girl, hey.
Oh, hey girl, hey.
So Heather, where are we at with your cocktail? Are we doing is there anything else you need to do to get yours ready?
No, my cocktail, I just garnished. I squeezed some orange on the top and just an orange peel, and then you rub it around the rim. I will tell you a trick that some bartenders use. If you take the orange peel here, hang on. If you're doing a cocktail that's more like a coupe, served in a martini glass, for example, you can take the actual peel and squirt it on the actual stem. And rub it just a little bit, not enough to make it sticky, but just enough that when people take a sip, and then when they bring their hand back towards their face, they've got the orange on their fingers. So and as the heat of the hand warms it up, because your drink's going to be cold, but if you get the warmth of your hand with the orange oils that you've expressed, it's going to have a really nice flavor to it. So if you're making something in a coupe or martini, you can always do that kind of on the sly. And people say, why does it smell so much like orange or lemon or whatever you use to express it? And it'll be because it warmed up while their fingers are on the stem.
Heather, how do you decide what glass to use? I got very overwhelmed at Total Wine yesterday with all of the options. So how do you know which one to use?
Well, for a glass that requires ice, generally you want a rocks glass. So you want a glass that's nice, thick, and deep. You want something that'll hold a big chunk of ice. Yeah. Exactly.
Thick and deep. I'm sorry.
Already going left. It's okay.
But this one's ice cold, so it's a little bit different than normal, right? So, so in this case, I just put a clear piece of ice in there because it looks pretty when you have clear ice in a cocktail that's rocks. When you're looking at something that's more just spirits, so like when I do an example of a Manhattan, which I'll do in a little bit whenever you guys are ready, I serve those up in a coupe glass or in a martini glass. And then any glass with a stem, I kind of consider you could use it as a coupe or a martini. Sours, if they have egg white in them, usually are served in a coupe just because it's pretty. You have that white foam on top from the egg white. If you're doing a sour that doesn't have egg white in it, it's generally served over ice, which means you would go back to a rocks glass. Does that help answer your question?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? If you have a favorite glass that you really love, use your favorite glass. I mean, it's about how you want to drink it. If you want to drink out of a mason jar, drink out of a mason jar. Just if it's appealing to you. And I've seen parties where all the drinks are served in mason jars, whether or not it's a spirit forward drink like a Manhattan or something that goes over ice like an old fashioned glass and an old fashioned. I mean, and you can just serve it anything. You can make it look nice. You just, put a garnish on it and it looks fancy.
Nice.
I have another question as overwhelmed part 2 at Total Wine yesterday for 2 hours and almost left. What are the essentials if you don't have a cocktail bar? What are the essential tools and ingredients that you should get if you just just getting into cocktails? Because I saw like 15 different bitters and it was overwhelming.
Yeah, so a classic bitters is Angostura. It's used for a lot of different things. It's not personally my favorite, but if you're going to get one kind of bitters, I would get probably Angostura and orange. Those two things you can do a lot with just Angostura and orange bitters. I personally like to mix my drinks in a mixing glass, so I went ahead and got a mixing glass because I'm more partial to drinks that are stirred rather than shaken. The drinks that have fruit juices in them, like anything with lime juice or lemon juice, pineapple juice, anything like that, you'll use a shaker. So you would get a weighted shaker tin, and you would shake your cocktail and then strain it. But for me, if you had to just get one thing and you knew you were going to make drinks with lemons and limes and sours and fruit juices, you should probably get this because this will also double as something that you can make a spirit forward drink in, like a Manhattan or an old fashioned, like we just did. So I would have I would get a mixing glass or a shaker, either one. You'll need a strainer, right? So you're going to pour everything in, put some ice in, and be able to strain it. Some bitters, like I said, Angostura and orange. I've got probably 20 or 30 bitters at least. I just kind of collect them when I see them. I went to Calgary and got Black Swan bitters. So I think those are those the ones that you're using?
The Black Cloud, yeah.
The Black Cloud, yeah.
Black Cloud. We've got a bunch of different
smoke. Yeah, so I got the little, just a little sample set, which is all you really need for bitters. Yeah. Does it look like this? Hang on. Is that what it looks like?
Yep. I got them all here because I was like, I don't know what to do with these. I used the one.
I've never bought them.
There's one with saffron. Oh, the saffron mango. I put that on top of Ramos Gin Fizz.
How did that turn out?
Pretty good, actually. It worked really well. It just kind of gave it something kind of bright and spicy up on top so that the egg white doesn't smell like wet dog.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. So you don't have that sulfur smell. You have the smell of the bitters on top. Actually, that's a really good idea. The other basics I would have would be a cocktail spoon, a stirring spoon. I have a long one. You can get really inexpensive, kind of shorter ones if you want. Honestly, if I'm traveling, I just use a knife, and I just make a cocktail in my glass. So you can do all this without all this fancy equipment, as long as you've got a glass that you can somehow strain and get the cocktail out after you've chilled it. In terms of other ingredients to start with, for whiskey cocktails, generally a vermouth is a good idea. A sweet vermouth is probably the best if you're going to make Manhattans. But the thing with vermouth is you want to always keep it in the fridge after you open it. And it loses.
I didn't do that.
Oh, whoops. Teresa, we talked about this.
It still smells good. But it doesn't tell me if it's sweet or not. It was like, oh, you have original red or white, and I'm like, well, I'll get red.
Red's generally a sweet vermouth, so you're good. Yeah, red is almost always, so you did good. You did really good. So the sweet vermouth that I have is it's a Kochi vermouth de Torino. Everybody has a favorite vermouth. And I just keep it in the fridge. And if it gets towards the end of its shelf life, I make a batch Manhattan and just give it away. So
you give away cocktails?
I do. You know what? I should show you. I have these little spice jars. And so when I make a huge batch of cocktails, if I want to just give somebody a sample, or if I'm testing something out, I need somebody to taste test it, I'll just put the cocktail in a little 2-ounce spice jar. And I kind of look like I'm peddling something because I'm going around handing out, 2 and 3 ounce. If you fill it all the way to the top, it's 3 ounces, right? Which is basically how big a cocktail generally is. So that would be, a nice little
present.
Gift. You know what?
Present.
Stocking stuffer. It's a stocking stuffer right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, wait, elephant at work. Wait, I might get fired at work for the state.
Yeah, you might not want to do that.
Shit.
Don't do that.
No.
Don't get fired.
It'd be a good party, though.
I know that a lot of us, we drink everything straight, but I got into spirits by drinking cocktails. What was everybody else's experience? Did you start with cocktails and go spirits, or?
I got into whiskey just by drinking whiskey straight. Like, I've not had very many actual cocktails made with whiskey in general. So, I don't know. I've got a bunch of samples of different liqueurs over here, Heather, and some vermouth and some triple sec and some bitters. So,
What kind of liqueurs do you have? Like, what are the kind of things? What kind of taste do you like when you have a cocktail that you enjoy?
I typically go for a sweeter, like the chocolates or the nutty stuff, which is what I got samples of.
Yeah.
I rated Matt's the other third of the Whiskey Crusaders bar today when I was over there. So I've got chocolate and walnut, hazelnut, amaretto, and almond.
Oh my gosh. You could make a fantastic, if you wanted to make, are you more Manhattan or more of a like old fashioned kind of girl?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, if you like to drink whiskey neat, probably Manhattan that isn't diluted as you drink it is going to be your go-to. So one of the cocktails that I was going to make for you guys, and let me know when you're ready. It's a batch cocktail, but it has 2 ounces of bourbon, and then it's a take on a Manhattan. So it has 1 ounce of Rivulet liqueur, which is a pecan liqueur. But if you have the chocolate and almond, you could do like 1.5 ounces of the whiskey, and then do a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce of the chocolate and 3/4 ounce of one of the nut liqueurs, and it'll sort of taste like a nut tart that's got chocolate in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Make it now.
back to Teresa's question. I mean, we kind of went off a little bit there. You other ladies, did you guys get into spirits through cocktails, or are you just crazy like me and just went gung ho?
When Josh started going to balcones, for those of you that have balcones, that is a big punch you in the face. I'm trying not to cuss with Marcia in the chat. That's a big punch you in the face to drink some of that straight if you're not a whiskey drinker. And so they actually make some really great cocktails at their distillery and their bar. And I remember having a couple with lavender in it. I think it was like baby blue with lavender. So I started that way and then moved to old fashions from there.
I personally started with whiskey neat, and my husband didn't drink bourbon at all. It took me 5 years to get him to drink bourbon, and the way I did it was through an old fashioned. So we jokingly refer to cocktails as cocktails are the gateway drug to bourbon or whiskey, right? Because if you have somebody that you can't get to drink bourbon or whiskey, sometimes, that looks good, Teresa. Sometimes the way to do it is to show them a cocktail that they like and slowly go them from a cocktail that is sweet, unassuming, something that's not terribly aggressive, move it up to something like from an old fashioned to a Manhattan, and then slowly move forward and forward until they're like, well, why don't I just drink the whiskey neat? Which is what eventually happened with my husband. So now it was really kind of wonderful because he went to complaining because we had 30 bottles of bourbon and whiskey, to now it's insane. It's nice. I can go to the liquor store. I'm like, hey, how many more bottles of bourbon can you get? So that's kind of where I started with him, was starting from cocktails to whiskey, but I went the other way because I started with neat and rocks sometimes, but mostly neat whiskey, and then moving into cocktails because I thought it was fascinating how the different flavors of things you add to whiskey can enhance things that are sort of underrepresented in the whiskey itself.
So Sam, you sort of had an experience with your husband. That's how you guys started your channel, right?
That was, yes, the basis of me getting into this was to learn how to drink whiskey. So I did not get to drink things with ice or water or any. He made me do straight everything neat from the get-go, no matter what.
You're like,
so, and eventually,
like Lefroy or something.
Yeah, it's our most watched video actually of all time is Lagavulin 16, and that was like the third whiskey he ever let me try, and I almost puked on him on camera, and it's a shit show. So, and I still don't like peated anything. Actually, we have a review coming out for Ardbeg this week, and it's. But I do like bourbon, and I like Irish. I like everything but Scotch, really. Well,
you probably do like Speyside Scotch rather than the peated Islay Scotch.
I'll never choose it. I do like that better than peated for sure, but it's still in the bottom of what I'm ever gonna pick. So, and as far as cocktail, I've always been kind of that basic bitch, so I did all the shots and all the beers and all the wines, and I loved a good Cosmo. All that, I don't know, everything that you can think of that a dumb college girl drinks, that was me my entire life. So, but now I do like whiskey, well, bourbon especially, straight. I'll drink the hell out of it.
I think the cult might be having a revolt.
Are they?
I don't know. I mean, you got Cult of Ardbeg. I think you hurt their feeling that they.
I know. I know.
Well, you might have some shrouded people come to your door, Sam. I don't know.
I know. And I'm
saying
prepared for it. It's Oh, I did like some of the scotch that Matt sent me. He's right.
Yeah, that was we did some Speysides in there. That was a good night. We found a couple of things that you actually liked.
Yeah, like you guys are going to remember more than I am, because probably by the end of it too, I don't remember any of it. It's the story of my life. So
yeah, they're all over on the side here, set aside specifically for me, because we have similar palates.
Yeah,
I like a little bit more of the scotches than you do. Islay Scotch is a no-go. Peated Scotch is a no-go. So I'm with you on that one.
Haven't met the right peated Scotch.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had a lot of them, and Brad tries to say the same thing. So
I said I wasn't a peat head either, and I am now. I mean,
a lot.
I'm into Highland Park now. I just spent way too much money on Highland Park the other couple weeks ago, and once you get in, you're in. I'm just waiting for my robe in the mail. So.
So my husband says we tried 12 samples that night, so I was good at the end of that.
Yeah, that was a long night.
Yeah. One of the things I did make sure to grab and have down here, because I might get to it eventually, is I've got a mini of Drambuie, so I can make, and I've got some Scotch hiding as well, to maybe try a rusty nail, because why not? It's we get into all of these bourbon and rye cocktails, but the rusty nail is a tried and true Scotch cocktail. And then somebody a while ago actually we were chatting on one of the Facebook groups, and I can't even remember how it came up, but then we talked about doing Lefroy and Di Serono. And holy crap, is that tasty. I've got the quarter cask, and I tried it with some of my little mini Di Serono. I used to love Sicilian Kisses, which was equal parts Di Serono and Southern Comfort. And so this is an Isla, an Isla kiss. And, so I'm like, I might venture into making myself some sort of a Scotch type, a Scotch type cocktail later in the evening, because I can't go smoky yet. I did a riff on a paralyzer using my Alberta Premium because it's, bottom shelf, right? I mean, how many times do you go to a party and there's like just whatever cheap bottle lying around, right? So
Sam.
on to the bottom shelf.
Good to know. Duly noted.
Well, I will tell you guys, since we're talking about going to parties and people having bottom shelf, one of the things that I do when I go to a party is I usually take a hostess gift, which is a cocktail. Sometimes people actually ask me to take a cocktail for the actual party itself. And the easiest thing to do is to take an empty 750. This is an old Willet Rye bottle. But what I'm going to do is fill it with 2 cups of a bourbon. In this case, Old Forester 100 proof, just because I prefer my cocktails to be 100 proof base bourbon if I can. Sometimes that's not what people have, but you can start there. It makes sure that the bourbon still comes through when you actually have a cocktail. And then I'm going to put a cup, so I'm going to put 2 cups of this, the Old Forester, and then a cup of this Rivulet pecan liqueur. This is actually my favorite pecan liqueur ever. And then I'm going to also add some chocolate bitters, and this will be a French Quarter Manhattan. That's kind of what I named it. The first year that I entered the Bourbon Women cocktail contest called the Not Your Pink Drink Cocktail Contest, I entered this cocktail and it won. And so after that, I just started making cocktails all the time because I thought, well, if that was good, surely I can come up with something else that's tasty. So a lot of my cocktail exploration sort of started with the Bourbon Women, which I think you guys talked about them a lot on your last live stream because you're getting ready to go to Symposium. I think some of you guys, did one of you all go to Symposium last?
Marcia did.
Marcia did, yeah.
Marcia did? Yeah.
Yeah.
And she looked familiar. I was like, she looks really familiar. That's what I knew her from because she was at Symposium. So Symposium is basically 3 days of going to different Kentucky distilleries and tasting different bourbons and whiskeys and learning from all these leaders in the whiskey and the bourbon community. And so if you guys haven't gone, I would really suggest that you go because I'll be there. I go every year. So kind of neat, and we can do a live stream from Symposium. I mean, how much fun would that be? We can all make little cocktails and, don't you think that'd be fun?
Sam too. She's like right down the street.
Yeah, like I need to join it because I'm in Northern Kentucky. So that's
And I am gonna go next year. I've been.
Are you?
I've been told by Marcia I have to go next year. So, and Elaine and Deb. So.
And for you, it's also a place to make a lot of good contacts with other people who love whiskey and other people who are in the industry. So it's not just, going and hanging out with a bunch, which is kind of what I do. I go and hang out with all my friends we've gone every year for 6 years. But a lot of people come and they want to meet new people and you get to talk to all these interesting people. And in a lot of cases, when we go to actual distilleries, the person giving us the tours may be the master distiller or the person in charge of maturation, things like that. So you get to meet people you wouldn't normally get to meet when you go to something like Symposium. So shameless plug, but anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and make this cocktail. I'm going to batch it. So I'm going to put 2 cups of Old Forester, a cup of this Rivulet, and I'm going to end up putting about 20 to 25 dashes of, this is the Bitter Truth cocktail bitters. They're chocolate bitters. They're really good.
If you didn't have chocolate, if you didn't have chocolate bitters, could you use like a chocolate liqueur instead?
Absolutely. So what I would do in that case is cut back a little bit on the actual bourbon or whiskey and add the chocolate liqueur in its place. But you still need to add some kind of bitters because it'll be too sweet. There are people who like super sweet cocktails, but it's more balanced if you have some bitters in there. If you have, like I have, I also put, sometimes put, B Brothers has a black walnut bitters as well.
So would you be okay just putting regular bitters in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have these things, and I would like you to walk me through making a me size when you're done with this or while you're doing that as well.
Okay, sure. So I'm going to do it in cups, and you can do it in ounces. Do you want chocolate in yours? You don't have chocolate bitters, correct? But you have chocolate liqueur?
I have pecan liqueur and I have chocolate liqueur.
Okay,
and I have regular bitters.
All right, perfect. So I would put 1.5 ounces of whatever whiskey you want. And
I
then
have the Old Forester 100 as well.
Awesome. And then put in 3/4 ounce each of your pecan liqueur and your chocolate liqueur.
Okay.
Hey, Sam, what did you want putting in your cocktail? I saw Bobby hand you something.
He brought me, it's apple seltzer with my apple whiskey. So it's like a
Oh, are you mixing them
apple
together?
cider on steroids. What?
You mix them together?
Mm-hmm. No, just a lot of apple. Problem is, I don't have any ice though. I think it would be better cold. Bobby, can you give me some ice? That'd be great.
If you had like some butternut, I don't know, schnapps, butter ripple schnapps, you throw a little dash of that in there. You have like caramel apple in a glass.
Yeah. I should, maybe I'll concoct the, we've got that salted caramel whiskey from the Tennessee shit. I should have him bring that down too. We'll throw it all in there. I'll be smashed, but it's fine. What else is new?
That's why we're here, isn't it?
I know. That's, yeah. He's probably going to come down.
Right?
What? I don't, he makes me nervous because Bobby likes to come down with no pants on to make me laugh.
Josh is naked off screen, so if I could really turn the camera around and see everybody, but I don't think I should do that.
And then Heather, is this poured over ice?
Yeah, I would generally stir it in a mixing glass over ice. I would put it in with ice. If you don't have a mixing glass, put it in your glass with ice and stir it really, really good. Maybe stir it for like 10 or 15 seconds. And then taste it and see if it needs bitters. It may need bitters to cut down on the sweetness of it.
Okay. I'm going to mute my camera real fast. Why?
Stop it. You're so gross.
Is that a kid? Is that a sippy cup?
No, it's a Star Wars cup that I think my kids got from it's a party cup. It's like coming off and stuff. But go away. Go away. You have no pants on. Go away. I don't want to see your saggy balls anymore.
You know it's a party when somebody ends up naked.
Exactly. You're at the no pants
It's a
party.
good party. We're having a great party here. We have bacon, we have booze, and we have naked men walking around.
We have balls. Yeah.
Well, some of us do.
Bacon, booze,
I
and
don't
balls. What else do you need for a party, right?
Right.
More
So you
booze
said
and balls.
if it's too sweet, you want to add a little bit of bitters?
Yeah, add a little bitters to it. If it feels like it's too sweet. What kind of bitters do you have?
Just the regular.
Angostura?
Yeah.
Yeah, add maybe 1 or 2 dashes and stir it up real good and see how it tastes. So I have the 2 cups of bourbon in it was empty, 750. I'm going to add a cup of the Rivulet pecan liqueur. You can really use any liqueur that you want. Pecan goes really well because I'm going to use the chocolate bitters. So I just pour this in and then I top it off with water. And then I just take this to somebody's house as a hostess gift, or if somebody needs a cocktail. The thing with making it in a 750 is you have to remember that when you make a cocktail at home, you're putting it over ice, and that dilutes it. So ice is pretty much the way that mixologists control the actual flavor and dilution. So if you have something that's really strong and you want to proof it down, you'll stir it a little bit longer over ice. So as it chills, it gets a little bit colder and gets a little bit more of that water in the cocktail itself. But for me, for this particular case, I've got all this. I'm going to fill it up pretty much to this white line or this the black seal right here with water, and that will take care of the dilution that would have occurred if I actually created it in a mixing glass with ice. But once I put the water in, all I'm going to do is stir it a little bit up and down, and then I put it in a gift bag and take it to the hostess at the party. That's it.
That would tone down a lot of family drama, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm really getting some great ideas right now.
So do you garnish this with anything?
If you have a cherry goes nice in there. Sometimes if I'm making that particular one, I'll use toasted nuts. You probably don't have toasted nuts at hand. Cherry's probably much more.
No, I threw a cherry in there.
Okay, try putting a cherry in there and see how it tastes.
So I had actually never even thought of that before. Like when you get invited to a potluck, Heather and I did a little test run the other night just to sort of make sure that the technology was working. And I had never thought about taking, you think about grabbing a bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey and taking it to a party, but I'd never thought about pre-mixing a cocktail and taking that. And it was kind of like this breakthrough moment of like, because my preferred whiskey comes in cask strength. And when I'm at a party, yeah, I might sip on something. It's nice to have something to sip on, but parties and cocktails just kind of go together. So to actually make a cocktail that I enjoy and then take that as my potluck thing, I'm like, I could become like the favorite person to invite to a party. So
You
hey,
will
I'm
be.
available for party season. So yeah, I want to try this out.
Well,
Thank you.
do you like it?
I do.
Good. So the general proportions for something that's like a Manhattan, you could do this just if you have a favorite Manhattan that you like, would be 2 cups of your whiskey, rye or bourbon, whichever you prefer, and then a cup of vermouth. Taste it and see if the proportions are right. Put the bitters in that you generally like. This will be about 8 servings. People generally pour a little bit smaller from this bottle. So although it's actually 8 3-ounce cocktails in this bottle, you might get more like 10 or 11 because a lot of people like to pour over ice, even if it's a drink that normally would be served neat. In a party, they kind of like to have something over ice. So put that in your bottle, take it to your party, and you're going to be the head of the party. So 2 ounces of whiskey, 1 ounce of vermouth or a flavoring spirit or liqueur. Or in your case, we would have done 2 cups of bourbon and then a 3/4 cup of the chocolate and 3/4 cup of the, I think you said almond or pecan. I can't remember what you put in there.
Pecan. Yeah, pecan.
Pecan, yeah. And then the other one that I take that is extremely basic and very popular would be a take on the cocktail that I made, the old fashioned. And that's just 2 cups of bourbon or whiskey and a 1/2 cup of whatever simple syrup that you like and put in the bitters. That's it. Top it off with some water. You only need about a 1/2 cup water because it's definitely going to be over ice. And when people serve things over a lot of ice, it's going to dilute a little bit quicker. So that'll give you basically the same thing. It'll give you about 8 to 9 cocktails that or more if people have, lower pours that you can take and share with the people at the party. And you don't have to make it. You don't have to bake anything or fix anything, on the stove. You can just mix up your cocktail in an old 750 that's empty and show up and everybody is going to be your best friend.
Yeah, I'll be following you around.
Brilliant. That's like one of those, why didn't I think of that?
I know, right?
Totally.
I'm going to go on. I think it's time for a smoky cocktail. So I'm going to do my rusty nail. I'm just not sure if I should use my Octomore or my Lafroig. So I'm going to kind of.
I'm sorry.
What about
How smoky do you want it to be?
Yeah.
Octomore, Lafroig.
How much do you want to kill your palate right now?
Right.
If you're going to do the smoky one, I would do the smoky one last.
Well, they're both smoky. So I'm going to do a rusty nail with smoky whiskey. But then I also was thinking I've got some things to do a riff on a penicillin, which also has smoky. So I'm like, I don't feel like it matters.
Well, penicillin has honey in it too, right? So you have a honey syrup as well.
Well, actually, I was going to riff on it. One of the gals in the sommelier program, she did a tasting with a meadery, and we were kind of talking back and forth on different things she could do. And one of the thoughts I had, well, if they had like a ginger mead, because mead is made from honey, that maybe you could do a take on a deconstructed penicillin and then get people to play with mixing it together themselves. And so I actually found, I have several local meaderies, but there's one that actually, they have this one called Honeybuck that is a ginger mead. And so I was going to kind of riff on that. I've got some honey here, and I instead of using a blended Scotch, I've got an Irish, the Egan's single grain whiskey. So I was going to use that because it's fairly light as my base. And then I was going to kind of play with that. I've got some lemon juice. So I was going to kind of finish off the night with that. But in the meantime, I was going to do a rusty nail. And I see a few people who are like, Octomore in the
right off the choice is Octomore.
So
yeah.
I think I'm going to go Octomore with the rusty nail.
Yeah. I will say, if you start bringing cocktails to parties, they will expect you to always bring cocktails to the party. So just know that.
It's like the bacon. We bring the bacon to the parties, and now everybody expects us to bring bacon to the parties.
Exactly.
Christina's are probably put that pear champagne down and use the Octomore. Oh, shame on the cult. Shame, shame, shame on the cult.
What's everybody else drinking right now?
Yeah, what are you guys thinking in the chat?
Yeah, what's the chat drinking?
And then, what else can we make here, Heather?
Yeah, Heather, let's make a.
I've got the stuff to make a Manhattan, my favorite Manhattan. If you guys want to do just a regular Manhattan.
What is that called for? What do you got?
That will be some sort of whiskey and a vermouth. Do y'all have any sweet vermouth or sweet and dry vermouth?
I have sweet vermouth.
Perfect. So, hang on, let me check my glass real quick. So
While you're getting that pulled together, one of the things I'd never even thought about, I find with an old fashioned, because we did that already, but I find that sometimes they get too diluted, and I don't know why, but I'd never thought about it. And I think it was Will or Matt from Whiskey Crusaders. One of them said that once you reach the point of it tastes perfect, pull the ice cube out.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is such a simple thing, and I'd never thought to do it. So I'd sit there and I'd drink my old fashioned, and half of it would be far too watered down by the end of the night. And I don't know why I never thought to just take the ice cube out.
And use one ice cube instead of a bunch of smaller, like refrigerator ice. So if you use one ice cube, it's not going to dilute nearly as fast as if you have a bunch of refrigerator ice that you have. Yeah. So for the Manhattan, I'm going to use 2 ounces. This is my favorite Manhattan. It has Johnny Drum in it. It's made by Willett Distillery. Have any of you guys had the Johnny Drum?
I've heard of it, but I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
It's very much got a lot of baking spices in it. It's sweet, but it's not overly sweet. But I get a lot of cinnamon from it, and I pair it with this Kochi Vermouth de Torino, which is kind of a higher end vermouth. But what I found is you can take a really good bourbon, and if you put a subpar vermouth in it, it's not going to make a good Manhattan. So if you have a vermouth that you really like, a sweet vermouth, just spend the money on it and just drink enough vermouths in 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and when you keep it in your refrigerator, it's still going to be good by the time you finish the bottle.
So what would be the difference between a vermouth and an Amaro, or are they the same thing basically?
They're not. A vermouth is a fortified wine. An Amaro is a liqueur. Sometimes, I'm not sure if Amaro is only a wine or if it can also be a distilled spirit, but it's infused with different bitters. An Amaro is something that you might drink after a meal, something that would be kind of bitter, but also a little bit sweet, help you digest what you just ate. Amaro, yeah. So Amaros, I've got. This is just one of them. I've got Milady Amaro, and the interesting thing about Amaro is you can make what they call a black Manhattan, which is bourbon and an Amaro, and because the Amaro is so much darker than the sweet vermouth, it turns out looking dark brown or black. So if you go out and order a black Manhattan, generally it's a bourbon or whiskey, rye. Purists will say rye because rye was the first Manhattan, but and then an Amaro, which would be, in this case, Milady. I also have a Verna. I actually have the Wild Life. Yes, I have exactly what she's showing right there. I have that too that you can use, and sometimes you have to taste the Amaro to make sure it's not too bitter. If it's too bitter, you'll want to cut it back a little bit with some of the sweet vermouth. Honestly, when I make a cocktail, if I'm working on a new cocktail, I'll put it together in the mixing glass and then I taste it until I get it right. You just have to make it the way you like it. Everybody has a different palate, right? You guys probably don't all love the exact same whiskeys, but
great.
It's the same
Yes, we do. We all love Ardbeg, right, people?
Sorry, Christina. I was gonna make mine with some rare breed.
Ooh.
Oh, I love rare breed.
So how much am I putting in again?
So you'll do 2 ounces of bourbon and then 1 ounce of the vermouth, or if you're going to use an Amaro, test it out with ½ ounce of the Amaro, and then put in more Amaro if you think that the balance is there. So 2 ounces. This is generally the proportion, but obviously you should change it based on how it tastes to you. Some people like more bourbon and less vermouth or Amaro. I really tell people there's no perfect cocktail, but there's a perfect cocktail for you. So make it the way that you like it.
Nice. Gretchen, what are you drinking right now?
Josh made me an old fashioned. We call it the Hamilton Old Fashioned. It's a recipe that actually Iron Root does. The assistant distiller Ashley does it with our Iron Root Promethean. In a new glass I got that says whiskey makes me frisky.
Aww.
I don't have to work tomorrow. Well, maybe.
Me neither.
Me neither.
Yay.
Oh, I'm working from home tomorrow, so
Nice.
So just as good.
Yeah, right?
yep.
Okay,
Just
so we
bring
have
that laptop on. Call it a day.
our whiskey, we have our vermouth,
You put some bitters in it. You'll need a little bit of bitters.
a little bit of bitters.
Yeah, just try a little bit, and then swirl it up with your spoon and see if it tastes right. When I have to pair a bourbon with bitters, I end up holding. I will show you what I do. I end up holding the bourbon next to me, and then I go through all my bitters and smell them to see if they smell good together. It sounds really simple, but and it sounds kind of silly, but so much of your taste is driven by what you smell. If two things smell good together, they're probably going to taste good together. So a lot of times if I'm in a situation where I don't know which bitters to pick, and honestly, I seriously have like 20 bitters, I'll just take whatever bourbon I'm going to use as a base spirit, go over to the bitters cabinet or the bitters bucket, actually I have a bucket, and start sniffing all the different bitters until I find one that marries with it well. In this case, I'm using Woodford, Sassafras, and Sorghum bitters, and then also Old Forester just came out this past year with some bitters, and it's called their Bohemian bitters. So that's the one that I'm doing for this.
So Heather, you had mentioned earlier about vermouth and keeping it in the fridge, which mine's been open for like a year and a half or more. So it seems like it's okay. But,
Take just a little sip and make sure it's still a little bit sweet.
Yeah. So is there anything, like, are there certain things, is there like a rule of thumb for how long something lasts for, or whether you should, I guess I kind of take it for granted that it has alcohol in it, so it's shelf stable. How do you know? Like, what's that determining factor on whether, I keep this in the fridge or whether I keep it on a shelf? Like,
Well, in general, something that's a vermouth has a lower ABV, right? So this is 16% alcohol. So it is still close enough to the alcohol percent of wine that it could go bad. So the best thing to do for that is actually with vermouth, you always want to refrigerate it, whether or not it's white vermouth or blanc vermouth or red vermouth, sweet vermouth, you want to make sure you refrigerate it. When you get to a liqueur that's, say, 30% alcohol or more, which I think something like Amaretto probably is, some of the Amaros don't really need to be refrigerated because they're generally around 30% alcohol. So they're okay to leave out on the shelf. But something that's lower than that, like a wine, once you opened, you would definitely want to refrigerate it. Once you break the seal, what happens is the alcohol begins to oxidize. I'm sure you guys all know this because that's what happens to whiskey, right? In the barrel. That's the magic, right? So when it comes to something like vermouth, where the base of it is a wine that's a lower proof, it's going to oxidize faster. So to slow that oxidation down, you reduce the temperature and you put it in the fridge. 4 to 6 weeks is fine. Now, have I tried a vermouth with something I've had for 2 or 3 months? Yeah. Was it the best vermouth? Was it the best Manhattan? No, it wasn't. But it was good enough for me, and I could use some bitters to help kind of spice it back up.
okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this mixed pretty well, and that's all. We've got our whiskey, we've got vermouth, and we've got some bitters.
All right, perfect. So, do you generally drink your Manhattans neat or on rocks?
I generally don't drink Manhattans.
Okay.
So,
you're a neat.
so I don't know.
Okay, so you're basically a neat whiskey drinker, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would do is stir it around in the glass until it's a little bit diluted, and then strain it and pour it into another glass so that you just have the spirit, not the ice.
I guess if you like your cocktails, like if you like whiskey that's full strength, but you do like that cold temperature once in a while. Maybe not so much this time of the year, but I don't know. In Texas, it's probably still like 80 degrees or something.
Such a face.
Here, it was minus 14 Celsius, and it was snowing for the last 24 hours.
Jealous.
We don't necessarily need to do it on ice, but I guess if you wanted a cold cocktail and you didn't want the dilution, can you just keep it in the fridge or throw it into the freezer? And I mean, if that's the way you like it, are you hurting anything?
No, actually, there are some of the top bars in the U.S. actually pre-batch their cocktails because they use some ingredients in such small amounts that just a drop or two can change the balance of a whole cocktail. So they'll batch maybe, I don't know, a 175 or a large amount of cocktail. They'll keep it extremely cold, and then they just pour it out when it's time to serve it. So the one thing I will say is there is a bit of controversy in the cocktail world about whether or not to premix cocktails and batch and for how long to premix them. So some people would say that part of what makes a cocktail successful is that it's a bunch of different flavors that come together, but they haven't really melded. So you get little bits and pieces of all of those different flavors in the balance. There are other people that would say that letting all the flavors meld together until they're almost like something like a liqueur or, you know, a really cold, chilled, like this French Quarter Manhattan, it's got enough alcohol in it. You can just keep it in the freezer and pour one out one by one. We need a drink. And it's something that in my opinion, the flavors in this meld really well together, even as a batch, even kept over a week or 2 or 3 or 4. Like I said, some people would disagree, but for me, I like the ease and convenience of it also. So.
Okay. So if you drink a lot of cocktails, or if you wanted to kind of get into trying something like that, where it's like, well, yeah, I don't necessarily want to be drinking something that's 50% all the time. I want to have a whiskey, and then I want to have a drink that's not going to be quite so potent. You know, watching a movie or whatever. It's like you take your time, you do your whole exploration, and then you switch over to a cocktail or something. I mean, or for and again, kind of going back to what I mentioned at the beginning too, we sometimes have those friends who don't like whiskey, or they're not as open to trying something full strength because it's a bit of a punch in the face at times, right? I mean, even to do something that's a smoky whiskey for somebody who's not a smoky whiskey drinker, you put it into a cocktail and it really changes that experience. I mean, just sipping on that Rusty Nail, I finished it now. But it was really good. And Octomore, with the sweetness of the Drambuie, it was just, I'm like, oh, wow, like that.
What kind of proportions do you use for that? It's an animal. Do you remember what kind of proportions you used for that one?
I think I did equal parts, but I don't know if that's the right mix for a Rusty Nail or not.
Well, you're doing a riff on it anyway, so you want to make it to your taste, right?
Right.
Yeah. Sarah, how'd yours turn out?
I like it. I ended up only using half an ounce of vermouth. And because, you know, I like that whiskey flavor to come through a little bit more. And I think it turned out pretty well. I let the husband taste it as he walked on by, and he gave me a good head shake and did a little happy dance. So I think it's good.
Do you need to make a second one so he can have one too?
Oh, I kicked him back to the bedroom. I honestly don't know if he has whiskey back there with him or not. So
who knows? Yeah.
What are you drinking, Gretchen and Sam?
I'm still on the apple shit. It's good.
The
though.
what?
The apple whiskey. My apple whiskey cocktail. I haven't switched to that. Although I didn't really like it with the apple seltzer. I liked it, honestly, just by itself. So I'm going back to that.
Is it too much apple, Sam? Is it?
I think it was too much apple.
Okay.
I think it was. And I love apple. I'm an apple whore. Again, basic.
Do you have any bourbon to mix it with?
I do.
Like, could you put like 2 to 1 with the bourbon?
I could.
Bobby, go bring her
I
something.
gotta get Bobby to get me some bourbon because I'm not getting up.
Go show
I
your
kind of wonder
Then I have to
like
look at
a
his call
Glenlivet.
again. I don't know if I want to deal with that, you know?
I was gonna say, I wonder if a Glenlivet with the apple cider would be good because you get a lot of those appley notes in Glenlivet whiskey in the Scotch, or even Glenfiddich is another one. Like they both have those fruity notes. To do something like that with a cider, it's going to amp up the apple and give it that sparkle.
Yeah, you're right.
We'll make you a Scotch drinker by cocktail.
Something like that, right?
It happens to everybody who starts with whiskey. You end up with Scotch at some point, right?
I know.
You end up loving it.
I'll get there. If I could, if you would have asked me in February if I was going to drink whiskey the way I do now, I would have told you to fuck off, that it wasn't going to happen. So, and now I do. So there is, you can change people around for sure.
Yeah. I would also say that as far as apple tasting whiskeys, I think the Old Forester 1870 to me really tastes like apples.
Yeah.
And whenever I pop it open and smell it, and it's not my favorite of the Old Forester whiskey roll expressions. I'm partial to the 1920 because it's higher proof, cherries, kind of got a nice long finish. But that the 1870, the first time I tried it, it just said apple to me. So I made an old fashioned with the 1870 with some cinnamon bitters or some vanilla cinnamon simple syrup and some ginger bitters. That's what I used. I made a really nice old fashioned.
Okay.
You're not on. You're not.
I'm glad it's not a wide
It's not a wide angle.
I want to see it, Bobby. Show it to
It's
me.
not a wide angle.
Well, you don't want to see what I'm looking at.
On the count of 3, did we all say hi, Bobby?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm afraid of what might happen.
I'm not showing him. I
2,
can't.
3. Hi, Bobby.
Hi, Bobby.
He's nervous, like they can see. They can't see you.
I see
We can do
you.
1, 2, 3. Hi, Josh, and hi, Will as well. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, Will's in the other room, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
which one do you have? What are you on?
He handed me the Evan Williams. I'm gonna pour that with some of this apple shit and see what happens.
Evan, bourbon and apple cider would probably be like almost like a low grade caramel apple kind of a thing. I'm guessing.
You can actually, put it in a crock pot and fill it with like maybe 2-to-1 apple cider and bourbon. And then
With some
take
some cinnamon sticks in as well. Just float it in.
cinnamon sticks. And then if you slice your oranges really thinly and then put cloves in the oranges and let that like mull for 3 or 4 hours, it's amazing.
Oh, I bet that
It's
is
wonderful.
amazing.
so this
And
popped
it
up
makes your whole
earlier,
house smell amazing.
when you were mentioning the apple cider, apparently the Bourbon Junkies did Elmer T. Lee and apple cider, and it's awesome.
Oh, that
good
does
to
sound
know.
good.
So I'm getting into a lot of other things, but Jack Daniel's was kind of where I really started a lot of my whiskey journey.
Mhm.
And so I'm a Jack girl at heart. I'm a sucker for some of what they do, even on the liqueur side. And so there was the Winter Jack that came out a few years ago.
Mhm.
And I was all excited to kind of give it a try and thought, oh, yay. And then I tried it. And I'm like, it's got good flavor, but there's like no bite to it. And then I looked and saw that it was only like 20% or less or something. It was just, I'm like, oh, this is weak. But you know what? You turn that with, do that with some, Lipton does every year at Christmas, they do a gingerbread tea. And so I do the apple jack or the winter jack from Jack Daniel's. And I do the gingerbread tea from Lipton's. And holy crap, it makes some of the best. And then I'll do like with the sliced oranges into it as well. And all of those flavors, you just let it sit in a crock pot. And it is a great hot beverage for the Christmas season. Like it just smells and tastes like Christmas in a glass.
I
And-
never tried that gingerbread tea. I'm gonna have to go out and find it now because
Oh,
I can think of some. You could make a simple syrup with that. You could just brew the tea, do 1-to-1 with simple syrup or with brown sugar.
You really
it-
could.
Oh, that sounds so good.
it's like apple, but and I've even done it where I've taken like a quart of apple juice and just poured that in with the tea, and it just there's so many different ways that you can riff on an apple cider, right? And or a mulled drink of some sort, and it's just so tasty. Like you get into that sort of thing, and it's like that's what. To me, those are the smells and the tastes of Christmas. Like I know it's still
So
a couple more
cozy.
off, but I don't know.
I love
So what's the verdict on the whiskey with the actual apple stuff?
Amazing. Never
Yeah.
thought I could do that. And I did know like it was just schlep it together.
Yeah.
It was so good. Like
Yay!
it made the biggest difference. Like now I can just drink them both like this. Like it's good.
Is it dangerous good or
Yeah, it could be bad.
okay?
Oh, like who needs White Claw when you have bourbon and apple cider?
Exactly. And it's not
Makes
no,
sense.
it's not apple cider. This is apple cider whiskey from
Apple cider
Arkansas. Yeah. Rocktown.
Is it
I'm sorry,
sparkling
apple
or is
pie.
it-
Apple pie whiskey.
Apple
I
pie.
was drinking.
Ooh, I have some apple pie moonshine.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Apple
that.
cider. And this is 100 proof.
Ooh,
So
there you go.
Nice.
it's from Arkansas. It's Rocktown.
Oh,
It's really
Rocktown is doing some really interesting things. They're very experimental, and some of it is good, and some of it is
not good.
experimental.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
that was from my girl Stellar Matrix, who's in the chat. We met in person. We met at a bar, and she brought this for me as a gift. And it is delicious.
I had never tried that. Now I'm thinking I have to go out and get some apple pie whiskey.
I know. Who'd have thunk it? I didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
You know what that would be good with would be like a ginger wine. Some people make
Oh, yeah,
some
for
companies
sure.
make actually ginger wine. And then you use a little apple cider to kind of dilute it just a little bit so you could that. And you guys are giving me all kinds of good ideas.
I actually have some ginger liqueur here that William insisted that we had to take from Matt. Any idea of what I can do with this with whiskey?
Yes. So you can make a ginger old fashioned. So you could use like 2 ounces of bourbon and a half ounce of the ginger. See if that was enough ginger taste to it. Do you know if it's Domaine de Canton or is it a different?
Yes.
Domaine. Okay, that's really sweet. So you're not going to really need an extra sweetener in it. So I would do 1.5 to 2 ounces of a bourbon, probably around 100 proof or lower, so that the ginger could still shine. You'll still need some bitters in it. I wouldn't use a whole ton of the Angostura, but just a little bit to see. Actually, if you had, you don't have any like, I love your cat cameo in the back.
That's our bacon kitty.
got-
He's usually asking for bacon by this point.
I've got the cats locked out, and they would be all over this if we were here, but if they were in here. But I have apple bitters, which would be good in something like that. You don't need extra ginger because the ginger will be sweet enough.
How much
We'll
is
see how it
it?
tastes. I would put a half ounce to start and see if you need more.
Okay.
The Domaine de Canton's pretty sweet. Doesn't have a lot of bite in terms of ginger. So in terms of like the heat of ginger. So you might need a little bit more bitters, but I would just taste it as you mix it together and see. It'll be old fashioned served on the rocks. So just put ice in there, kind of swirl it around, see how it tastes. So let me ask you guys this. What, if you're just drinking a whiskey neat, what whiskeys make you think of the holidays?
Ooh, that's pretty good.
You like it?
Yeah, I do.
You might, if you had a bitters that was like either an apple bitters or a vanilla bitters, or something like something that had a little heat to it, it would really kind of amp up the ginger flavor. It would give you the heat that you're missing in the ginger.
Yeah, I just have regular bitters. I have an orange liqueur and a cherry liqueur.
The orange and ginger is a really good combination. So you could just put a splash of orange on the top and see.
Let's find out.
Right? Yeah, see how it goes. I mean, basically, when I make cocktails, I'm just experimenting the whole time. It's like a lab.
Ooh, I like that even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, if you really want to take it the next level, if you have a little bit of the nut liqueur that you had, just like a tiny, not even a capful, just like a little tiny, like a bar spoon on top, and just kind of swirl it just at the very top, so that when you actually put your nose in the glass, you'll smell like you would smell the nut on top, and then you would
pecan or almond.
Personally, I would go with almond with ginger.
I have walnut and hazelnut.
Do you have any amaretto?
I do.
Almond.
Because
Yeah,
amaretto
almond.
is almond.
Yeah, I would go with the almonds. Yeah, personally, that's what I would do.
There we go. That smells so good. So just a dash on top?
Just a tiny bit, yeah.
Cocktail person, Sarah?
I'm sorry?
Are you turning into a bit of a cocktail person tonight?
A little bit. I mean, it's definitely not going to be my go-to, but I think having a chance to actually try some different things with whiskey outside of just a regular Manhattan or an old-fashioned, has kind of opened up a little bit for me. I've always, I don't know, there's always something about whenever I've had an old-fashioned that has been made for me that there's just, I can't even pinpoint what it is that turned me off to it. I don't know if there was too much bitters in it or simple syrup.
You think it was too sweet?
It almost had like a clovey type taste to it. Hey, no!
Well,
my husband just walked off with a drink before I got to taste it.
Well, you get that back from him. We need to know how it tastes.
Get that fuck over here. I put the amaretto on top and I hadn't had a chance to taste it yet.
What do you think?
Ooh, I like that. Oh, happy dance. We got a happy dance over here.
Oh, what's the happy dance?
The happy dance was for the one that we just made with the ginger liqueur.
So you had ginger, a little bit of orange, and then you did a float. I will tell you, I got a bunch of these little bitty spray bottles on Amazon. I don't know if you can see them. This one has the Rivulet pecan liqueur. So sometimes when I'm making a Manhattan, and I just want a teeny tiny little bit of the actual pecan on it, I'll just spritz it a couple times.
Oh, nice.
So it gets it on the outside of the glass, on the inside of the glass, and so, but it's just on the surface. It's not mixed in with everything else. So when you actually taste it, when you bring it up to your nose, you smell in this case, the pecan or whatever you're adding.
Right.
But I actually have a little spray bottle that has pecan Rivulet because I use that in a lot of my cocktails. And then one with absinthe if I'm going to make a Sazerac. I prefer a little bit more licorice taste in my Sazerac than generally is made. So I'll put more like a 1/4 ounce instead of just rinsing the glass. I really like to taste that licorice come forward because I think it makes a really good blend with the rye when I'm actually tasting it. But so in any case, and the other thing you can do with the actual, if you get these little bottles, you can actually spray the stem of the glass just like I did with the orange peel. You can actually spray the stem of the glass and the same thing will happen, which is as your hand heats up the actual oils that are in the liqueur, you'll get that smell even as you bring your cocktail up towards your nose.
Awesome. That's a good idea. I would never even thought about that.
It's spritzing. I will tell you that if you really want to take your cocktails to the next level and you're just kind of playing around with it, to actually have some spritzing bottles that just you put 1 or 2 spritzes on the very top of a cocktail, it'll really make the cocktail because on the top level you'll taste that either pecan or absinthe or whatever, or orange. If you really like the orange flavor, you'll really get that on the rim of the glass. But then as you drink it, you get more of the combined flavors of the actual cocktail. So that's another thought too.
And you talked about the trick of doing the orange peel on the stem of the glass to kind of add that. And it reminded me of something from one of the SOM classes at the Whiskey Marketing School. Anthony Dina, who comes in and does the food pairing portion, talked about the time where he did a thing where they were making a dish and they tied a spring a sprig of rosemary to the fork. So there was no rosemary in the dish at all. He just tied it to the fork so that as you were taking a bite, you would get that aroma of the rosemary coming in. So in terms of doing that, I mean, it just you're talking about doing it on the stem. Could you do that ahead of time so that, you know, like if you're having a bunch of people over, you do that, or
Yes.
does it be fresh?
No, because when you use something like rosemary or sage, anything that's really savory, really any kind of thing that has that you would taste an essential oil from. So when they make essential oils, they're basically boiling down and distilling basically the oils from the actual plant, right? So if you take the rosemary or sage or cinnamon wouldn't work because it's a bark, but anything that's like a leafy herb and kind of rub it on the stem, you'll have the same kind of effect. And in fact, you could just, if you had a drink that you wanted to taste more Christmassy, rosemary is something that we all kind of associate with Christmas. You could just take a sprig of rosemary and a couple hours before you were ready to serve, just put a little bit of rosemary on the edge and maybe a little bit of rosemary on the actual stem itself. And that will mean that when they touch it, they'll get the rosemary in their hand. So when they go to get a drink or eat something else, they'll still smell that rosemary, but they'll also have it on the rim of the glass. So yeah, rosemary, sage would work the same way. Basil is fantastic. In the summer when basil is fresh, using basil just to rim a glass. Like if you were making something like I love the combination of peach and basil. So if I were making a peach old fashioned or
Are you doing the peach? Are you doing the peach crown?
I got it.
Why you pull that out?
I got
You're
it.
all excited about your peach crown iced tea earlier this year. I remember your episode about it.
what are you doing with the peach crown? You need to tell
I
me
don't
what
know.
you're doing.
I don't know what to do with it right now. Bobby just brought it down to me, and I'm just.
So now you need him to go and get you some basil to
Do
put
you have any
on.
basil in the fridge? Can you go get you some basil?
I know I don't have any basil.
Oh, too bad.
I should do basil. I will get basil. I will make this happen. What else can I do with this crown?
That the peach crown with that iced tea and some basil on the rim. I'm imagining that. I'm like, oh, maybe I need some crown peach in my life. I really don't think I do, but part of me that thinks maybe.
YOLO, Teresa, YOLO. You need it.
Yeah.
Well, I did my riff on the penicillin. And
Okay,
holy shit, is it tasting good? So what I did is I used about 1 ounce or so of the Egan's, which is a single grain Irish whiskey. And I did about 10 mils of some fresh lemon juice. I couldn't get my honey open. It's too sticky, and I don't have a husband to call and say, "Can you open this for me?" So instead, one of those ones that I tried, it's the Porter's Tonic, and it's a cardamom orange simple syrup.
Oh, that sounds so good.
It is really, and you know what? So I used about equal parts that with the lemon juice, about 10 mils. And then I did the honey buck mead, which is a ginger mead, so distilled honey with ginger. Stirred that, and then just did the float with about 10 mils or so of the Lefroy quarter cask. And holy, is it tasting good?
Isn't it fun to play with all these different ingredients? I mean, the combination of them is just amazing.
It sort of is. I mean, I'm using ice. Oh wow, that's like half the size that it was before. But I left the ice cube in it to kind of keep it chilled. But holy crap, that's tasting good with like the ginger, the honey, the whiskey, and the peaty whiskey. It all plays together so nicely.
Now I want to play with this stuff. Like I didn't think I cared about cocktails, and all of a sudden I care a lot about cocktails. Like,
well, it's all about you know how I usually think about it is I think about a dessert or a dish that I really like. Like I love derby pie, which is chocolate pecans and simple syrup, and like a brown sugar kind of syrup.
Derby pie is so good.
Derby pie?
Heather,
Derby
where
pie.
do you live?
Have you not had derby pie? It's
Oh my
a
god, I've
Kentucky
had
thing.
derby pie. I've had derby
Right.
pie as long as I can been able to speak. It's
Exactly.
You're in Kentucky too,
I
aren't
am
you?
in Kentucky, right?
So a derby pie is a pie made with, usually has a base of chocolate in the bottom. It's a pecan pie that's made, has a bunch of chocolate in it, right?
Yeah,
So
it's basically a
chocolate,
pecan pie with
pecan sugar.
chocolate. It's
Yeah.
the best thing ever.
It is. And so, like if I'm going to make a derby pie old fashioned, I'm going to have 1.5 ounces of some kind of bourbon. I'm going to have some pecan liqueur. I'm going to have some chocolate liqueur. And it depends on if you want milk chocolate liqueur, if you
Like
want dark
creme de
chocolate
cacao kind of chocolate liqueur?
Yeah, so like
had
a
that.
a creme de cacao would be like a dark chocolate liqueur. You could use equal parts of dark chocolate liqueur and pecan liqueur. You really have to base it on what you like best, right? So I'm all about tasting and make sure it tastes good to you, because you can make a good cocktail that someone else loves, but if you don't love it, then why are you making it? Because you're also going to be the one drinking it.
Damn.
But so, for example, I'm working on a cocktail right now for bourbon women, and I've got this pear liqueur, and I'm trying to pair it with almond liqueur or pecan liqueur. I'm really trying to narrow down on what makes a really good pear tart. And so when I think about desserts, I get a lot of cocktail ideas from desserts or from combinations of flavors that I know go well together. And there are liqueurs for everything: peach liqueur, apricot liqueur. You can have tequila that's been infused with all kinds of pepper liqueurs to make it hot and spicy, but you don't really get the kind of vegetal feel of the actual pepper itself. I mean, there's so much you can do with what's available. It's just amazing.
So is there a rule of thumb sort of thing, like one proportion of sweet to one proportion of savory to one proportion of alcohol, or 2 proportions of alcohol to 1 proportion sweet, are there some rules of thumb that people can kind of think about in terms of building something with balance? Like if it's like, well, I know I like this and I know I like that. So like you're talking about this what did you call it? Derby pie? And I'm
Yes.
like, I have Knob Creek cast strength rye. I have my creme de cacao. I can't speak right now. And my Di Serono, because I don't have pecan, but I have amaretto. Like, what sort of proportion should I be looking at to be able to mix that into something that's not just going to taste bland or dull or kind of flat?
So I would take it back to, for yourself, do you want a cocktail that's really going to showcase the whiskey or going to showcase the flavors? If you're going to showcase the whiskey, I would do a little bit heavier on the whiskey and then maybe a little bit less on the flavoring agents. If you want to really balance it so that it tastes like something like a dirty pie, I would make the flavoring agents like the pecan liqueur and the chocolate liqueur a little bit stronger so that when you actually drink it, it tastes more like a dirty pie. Personally, I really like cocktails where I can taste the bourbon. I'm a bourbon woman, right? I'm on the board of Bourbon Women. We love to be able to taste our bourbon in our cocktails. You guys love whiskey. You're not going to love a whiskey cocktail that doesn't leave you with a little bit of that whiskey taste in it, a little bit of whiskey finish. You really want to be able to taste that you're drinking a whiskey cocktail, not a vodka cocktail. There's nothing wrong with vodka cocktails, but a whiskey cocktail, you want to taste the whiskey underneath all the other things that you're adding. So when I am personally creating a cocktail that's whiskey forward, I'm going to make sure that I have enough whiskey that I can still taste it. It'll differ depending on the type of whiskey that you use. So if you're using a high proof, 100 proof or higher, or maybe you're using cask strength, you can up the amount of actual liqueurs that you're using. So in the case of a Derby Pie Manhattan, for example, if we're going to make something like that, so it would be maybe 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces of bourbon or whiskey, and then 1/2 ounce each of the pecan and the chocolate, depending on how strong the pecan and the chocolate is. All of this depends on the actual strength of flavor that you have in your liqueurs that you're adding. I'm sorry to cage it like that, but it really depends on what you put in your glass.
So, I mean, one of the things that I talk to people about, because I do work for one of the local distilleries here in Calgary, Wildlife Distillery, which you came and visited, which
was
is
wonderful.
great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But like we have some different things, but and one of the things that we have is blood orange bitters, because one of the botanicals in our gin is blood orange peel. So what I tell people is that bitters are a way of adding flavor without adding sweetness. Is that, am I correct in that sort of analogy?
Yes, absolutely. The thing you want in a cocktail is a cocktail that's not overly sweet. And if you mix together a bunch of liqueurs, sometimes liqueurs, because of the way they're marketed, they want to market them so that they're drinkable on their own, like Di Serono, or like a chocolate liqueur, like a creme de cacao, or in Kentucky we have the Ballatin chocolate liqueurs. They're extremely drinkable on their own, just as a chocolate liqueur. But you want to be able to add bitters to balance that sweetness out. So in terms of making an actual cocktail, you want to make sure that it has some sweetness in it, but that the sweetness doesn't overwhelm the whiskey, that it doesn't overwhelm your base spirit. I mean, we all love whiskey, right? That's why we're here talking about with Whiskey and Lipstick International. We want to talk about whiskey. We want to be able to taste the whiskey in our actual cocktails. And so when you talk about bitters, you really want to be able to balance the bitters. And honestly, when I'm coming up with a new cocktail, I start with a small amount and then I add until I actually taste the profile that I want.
Okay. So what I did just now, because you guys made me think that, oh my goodness, that that Derby pie sounded so yummy.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
It's so good.
I pulled out my my cast strength Knob Creek rye, and I did probably about 1.5 ounces of that because it wasn't quite coming through strong enough. So I added a little bit more, and that is, yeah, about 1.5 ounces or so of that. No, not that one. I did the chocolate. I did the creme de cacao.
Creme de cacao? Okay.
With about maybe 7.7 of an ounce. No, 7.5 mils or so, because I did less than 10 mils. Okay. And then I did, what else? Oh, I added 10 mils of the Di Serono because I don't have anything pecan, so I did almond. And then I added 2 dashes of my Prairie Rose. I did your smell thing?
Yes.
I smelled.
So that's going to be a very floral. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what the Prairie Rose, I don't know what's in it. But it was good.
It's very floral.
To
and it's very, so you're taking the sweet flavor of the pecan liqueur, or the almond liqueur, and the chocolate liqueur, and you're adding a floral note to it. So it detracts from the sweetness a little bit and gives you something else. It's almost like you're adding a gin flavor to it. I heard a bottle just open.
Good.
I don't know what bottle that was.
I'm kind of taste.
Back to my stag.
Oh, you got stag?
Something.
Oh, she's gonna mix shit with stag. Girl.
Yeah, she is.
Nice.
That's a woman after my own heart, mixing with high.
I have a high proof whore.
High proof whore, living her best life. I love it.
So if I can use this in a mixed drink or a cocktail, I'm gonna do it. So
absolutely. Well, the thing is, when you're trying to convert someone to being a whiskey drinker or a bourbon drinker, in my case, you have to have a cocktail that's a little bit sweet so that it borrows the sweetness from the bourbon or the whiskey, but that it also has a little bit of that bitter from whatever bitters you're adding. But it needs to taste like something else that's familiar. In our case, like a Derby pie, for example, or
this tastes like chocolate. This tastes like pecan pie with chocolate.
That's exactly what a Derby pie tastes like.
It does.
Am I wrong?
No,
Derby
you're not
pie
wrong.
in a glass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, what should I put in this? Knowing that I have chocolate, walnut hazel, the ginger, amaretto, almond, pecan. I've got cherry and orange.
What about orange and walnut with the Stag Junior? What do you think?
Orange and walnut?
Well,
You have walnut?
It's a walnut and hazel liqueur.
Nice.
Ooh, sounds fancy.
Yeah, orange,
Yeah, I
and,
just think
orange
Matt
and hazelnut goes well. Yeah.
Norcello,
What's it called?
Norcello, Nocelllo.
Mm.
I don't know how
I'm
to say it.
100%. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what that is. Yeah, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's Matt. Matt gave it to me. I just looked
Matt's
it up
fault.
and saw what it was. So you're thinking, what now? What should I put in this?
Orange and walnut is a good combination because we did orange and almond. You really like that. What
Mhm.
about chocolate and walnut? What do you think?
Right.
Or ginger and walnut, because ginger and walnut is a pretty good combination too, right?
Ooh.
I will be right back. Keep going.
Okay.
I can do ginger and walnut. I've got chocolate and walnut. I've got this Godiva chocolate.
Oh, is it the creamy kind or the
It's
liqueur
the
kind?
creamy kind. It's creamy.
So what if you did the creamy Godiva with a little bit of the chocolate and a little bit of the walnut?
Okay, so I've got the creme
Are
de
you
coca,
creme de cacao?
or yeah, however you say it, cacao.
Yeah.
And then the walnut. These three things.
I love walnut, orange, and chocolate. So I would be partial to that. Yeah.
So orange and chocolate, walnut, orange, and chocolate. Okay, so
Yeah.
the chocolate, should I do the creme de cacao or the Godiva?
I would do the creme de cacao for that.
Excellent. Let's see, where's my orange? Orange. Walnut.
Yep.
And just small amounts, or do you have a?
I would do half ounce each of those three and then add in an ounce to an ounce and a half of your whiskey and see how it tastes. Seriously, I'm all about taste testing because, like I said, unless it tastes good to you, it's not going to taste good to someone else.
And over ice or just chilled? What do you think? I mean, you're the professional here.
I would try it neat first, and then if it needs an additional dilution, put it over ice.
There is something to be said for cold though too. Like
Yes.
when I was mixing my riff on the penicillin, I got it and I'm like, ooh, I think it needs a little bit more of something and a little bit something else. And then I tried it, I'm like, oh, and so then I stirred it to get the chill factor happening, and the chill factor actually made a difference too.
It does. What happens when you chill something is it reduces the amount of flavor that you actually have from it. So chill filtering not chill filtering, but when you actually chill something, it reduces the amount of essential oils that you get. Heat actually expands the amount of perception that you have of oils, of flavor, of things like that. So when you chill something, you're drawing in the flavor a little bit. In some cases, that's really good. And something like what you had that has Lefroy in it, you want to pull that in a little bit because you don't want the Lefroy to overwhelm all the other flavors. Did you end up with the Lefroy or the Optimum?
So I did the Octomore for the Rusty Nail, which turned out fantastic. I used the Octomore 10-year.
You better write that down.
It was I just did equal parts of Drambuie and Octomore 10-year, and holy crap, that was so. If you are not it wasn't super peaty, so it helped to balance off that peat factor. Really, really nicely, gave it a nice sweetness, and it just was like, holy crap, this is good. Nice thing with Drambuie too, here's my bottle, is that it's at 40%. So even for those people who love their cask strength or high proof alcohol, if you're mixing equal parts, sure, it's going to bring down the proof of something that's almost 60% alcohol, like the Octomore, but it's not so much that it's going to be diluting it a huge amount. I did do it over ice so that it was chilled. But at 40%, that Drambuie is not thinning it out to nothingness, right? I mean, that's one of my complaints about a lot of the bottom shelf-esque whiskey is that they've proofed it down so low that once you put it into a cocktail, and then like with, even a highball where you're mixing it with Coke and then you're putting it over ice, it's like, well, Now you've taken my whiskey down to like 10%, and I'm not going to enjoy that, right? A rusty nail with the Drambuie, at least you're keeping it at 40%. Even the Di Serono keeps it at, like, that's 28%, so it's going to take it down a little bit, but not a lot.
Not
really.
too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that when you use honey, the way to use honey is in a honey syrup. So either 1 to 1.5 or 1 to 1 with honey and water. Only because when honey gets cold, when it hits the ice, it congeals. Honey itself really congeals, and it'll stick to the bottom of your mixing glass, the bottom of your mixer. It'll be really hard to pour out into your cocktail itself. So if you're going to do something that's honey flavored, make sure you're using honey syrup instead of just straight honey.
Or use mead.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was going to say, I forgot.
It tastes good too. I've got, I have a penicillin, and I have a
You're double
Derby
fisted.
pie.
Double fisted.
I'm double fisted.
I'm double fisting too.
Penicillin and Derby pie.
Actually, if you really want to get down to it, I'm triple fisting.
Whoa.
Oh my God. Okay, what's in the third? Okay, what proportions did you use for the third one?
This is stag. This is just straight stag junior. This was my original cocktail with the bacon.
So is it
And then-
better on its own or in your little cocktail? Are you which one do you enjoy? Just not exploration, just straight up. If I'm just gonna sip it and enjoy it, which one are you kind of?
Since this is my first time having a cocktail with Stag Junior, I really am enjoying this. I've got the orange and the chocolate in here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I stopped with the experiment of it, and it tastes really good with the flavors coming from the Stag. I guess it's just going to depend, Teresa, on what kind of mood I'm in at this point. Because with this being my first, exploration of cocktails and mixing it with whiskeys that I thoroughly enjoy, it's just going to depend on the mood I'm in. Am I in the mood to throw something together? This wasn't hard to throw together,
Yeah, not at all.
and I've written down a couple of the things that I've done so far tonight, so I can go back. But
and one of the things I've found too is that, I mean, as much as people say it's like, oh well, I'm just gonna mix it, so I grab whatever I have on the shelf, right? They're gonna grab for something that's maybe a little bit cheaper, a little bit lower proof. Personally, because I love that that spirit forward experience. I think everything that I've used, with maybe the exception of the Egan's, the Egan's is overproof at 46%, but everything else I think that I've used tonight has been cask strength, and that lets the alcohol still come through in a way that it's still going to coat the mouth. It's going to be a new flavor experience in a way that people maybe aren't used to. And yes, it costs more for cask strength or bottled in bond, but that higher proof is going to stand up in that cocktail.
Yes,
and it's going to be able to be there after the dilution. You're not going to lose that flavor, right?
I can totally still pick the Stag out of this glass.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. If you are a whiskey lover, you want the high proof in your glass before you add the liqueurs and the sweeteners. You want to be able to taste your whiskey. You're not drinking a whiskey cocktail because you want a cocktail. You're drinking a whiskey cocktail because you want a whiskey cocktail.
Right. And I think that's why I'm okay with these, because a lot of times when you get an old fashioned or Manhattan, the two more famous whiskey cocktails out there, they're not as whiskey forward, or they're made with a lower proof type of whiskey, so you don't get as much of that as a whiskey enthusiast. As I enjoy whiskey on its own. I want a whiskey forward drink. With this being, I made this with 1.5 ounces of Stag Junior and then 1/2 ounce of each of the liqueurs. And I can taste the liqueurs in here. but I can still taste that Stag Junior, that strong and almost kick you in the, well, some people kick you in the face proof of the Stag Junior. And I mean, I really enjoy it. And I appreciate you for helping me find that.
Well, I think for people who are whiskey forward kind of people, you have to really balance the amount of low proof liqueurs that you're using with your high proof cask strength or otherwise whiskeys. You want to taste your whiskey. You're not trying to dilute it with, you want to get the other flavors, but you don't want to dilute what you're tasting. Now, if I were making this for a bunch of people who were not whiskey centric, like us, I would cut back on the whiskey. I would cut the amount of liqueurs that you're doing. And people who are slowly introduced to whiskey through these lower proof cocktails that have a little bit of whiskey taste, a little bit of higher flavoring taste in it, they will eventually, I'm telling you, they will eventually be converted to actual whiskey drinkers.
Right. I think it's a good segue into it.
Absolutely.
So Sam, like as somebody who is newer to the whiskey experience and that spirit forward experience, do you think that having a cocktail that is spirit forward maybe makes that experience less painful or even
100%,
enjoyable?
100%, because I got thrown into the wolves. I didn't get that experience. Fuck that. You don't get to experience that. And I think that would have made my life a lot easier in the beginning. But also maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't have ever, because I still would have tasted, to me at the beginning, the whiskey taste was not good. It was not a good, none of it was, so even like one of our initial videos that we did was after he made me drink it neat a lot and I still didn't like it, we tried one with Coke, one with ice, one with water, neat. And I still wasn't crazy about any of those either. It literally just took time and just continually drinking different things.
Well, and smoky whiskey in particular, I think it's one of those things that it's the repetition of it that kind of brings you around.
Yes. Yeah. It's an acquired taste like beer. Like I didn't like beer the first time I drank that either, but holding my nose and passing it to my roommate back and forth in college, eventually I liked beer. Like you get over,
20 years in and I still don't like beer.
Really? Oh, I love it. My first love is beer. I love all beer, but
when I discovered cider, I was like, holy crap, there's something that's affordable that I can actually drink. Because I tried beer and I hated it. I tried wine and I could sort of tolerate it. And then I had a friend that introduced me to paralyzers, which I don't know if they're really popular in the US. I think they're a Canadian thing. But it's basically like a Black Russian and then you pour some milk in on top of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like an Oreo Russian.
Yeah, like a White Russian or Black Russian. So, I mean, you got that Kahlua, you got that nice, rich, dark coffee kind of flavor in there. You've got the vodka or the tequila, and then over ice, topped off with Coke, and then you just float some milk on top of it. And holy crap, I was like, holy, wow, I like this. This is something I can enjoy. And even rye and Coke or, a whiskey Coke.
Yeah.
It was something that I could finally get behind, and that kind of led me back to drinking whiskey neat. And so it's one of those things where tonight I really appreciate being able to explore the idea of cocktails as a way to bridge the gap. Because I mean, when I reach for something and it's the Knob Creek and it's 119 proof, most people that I know, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, everyday people. Yeah,
and but I love it, and I think it's fantastic, and I want a way to be able to introduce people to it. And I do tastings, and I have people over, and I say, okay, let's build to it. So we start with something around that 40% range. And I did this. I did this back in July as sort of we have the Calgary Stampede here, which is a pretty big thing. People know about it, and they come. It's very Western centric. And then I also was thinking it's very 4th of July. It happens around, it starts around that first weekend in July. And so I did a tasting at home that was all American whiskeys. And we started off with things that were in that 40 to 43%. And by the end of the night, I had people who had never had whiskey before, or who were very new to whiskey, drinking my Knob Creek cask strength at 59.8% alcohol, 119.5% proof.
Yeah.
And they were picking this as their favorite whiskey of the night. But we built to it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I could have maybe brought them in with a cocktail and said, hey, here's a Manhattan that's made with a cask strength rye whiskey.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a stepping stone for them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you start people with a cocktail that they like, that they love, and you can say, can you pick out the whiskey notes, not the pecan notes or the chocolate notes or the bitters notes, you can actually taste the whiskey. Well, let's talk about having a whiskey of rice, or let's talk about having a whiskey neat. You can move people from a whiskey cocktail to whiskey neat. It's not hard. It just takes a transition for them to understand that, oh, hey, I really like this in a cocktail. Wonder what it tastes like on rocks. Wonder what it tastes like neat. I mean, all of us love whiskey neat. That's how I prefer to drink my whiskey, to be able to taste it and see what the flavors are. And so moving from cocktail to rocks to neat, I mean, that's a natural progression, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I completely agree. I have a lot of friends that are into cocktails in general. And if I could switch them over to like a whiskey cocktail and see how they feel about that and slowly work their way up, maybe one day they'll be drinking a Stag Junior cocktail, which is, what is this, 127.9 proof cocktail?
Put hair on your chest, right?
Seriously, come on, ladies, let's do this.
Yeah.
It is not just a man's drink anymore, no matter which way you drink it.
Right.
I think it would be a really good segue into just the whiskey world in general.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think that the way to get people to love whiskey is to get them through cocktails. I really believe that. I've had family members and friends that I've tried to get into whiskey neat, and it really takes going through cocktails to get them to whiskey neat. Sorry.
That's all right.
It's okay. Yeah, to get them to whiskey neat, because that's really what it takes to actually get them to be able to appreciate the flavor in a cocktail with whiskey forward, to move them into something that actually is just whiskey neat or whiskey on the rocks.
Well, and I think one of the things too with cocktails is that it's that spirit forward experience. I mean, cocktails were sort of invented to cover up or otherwise hide the originally
alcohol.
Hide that alcohol experience. But it's one of those things. You start to take people forward a little bit at a time. One of the things that I found, and I don't know, I know we're getting on like, holy crap, we're almost 2 hours in. It doesn't feel like we're 2 hours in, but we are. But like, I have a local place that does this smoked old fashioned thing as their, that's their big draw. And so you can pick for a whiskey forward cocktail, an old fashioned. It's sugar and ice and bitters and your whiskey. And what they've added is that smoked factor. So you pick the smoke that you want, and they have this barrel head that they pull out in front of you, and they light it on fire and get that smoke in the glass. And then you pick the bitters that you want. And so one of the ones that I know that I did was like a walnut flavored bitters with a cherry smoked wood and maple sugar, and then Booker's bourbon, which is always cask strength. And
I love Booker's.
oh my goodness,
So
like
good.
it,
Love Booker's.
oh my,
I love Booker's.
Yeah.
It might be my favorite.
I mean, I haven't. No, that's the. Let's see if I can pull it. I haven't used it tonight, but I mean, one of my favorites. It doesn't matter what the expression is. Always in that 60+%, almost always 60+% alcohol. To be able to choose that. And it just blows my mind because it opens up a whole flavor profile that I wasn't expecting. And I think that's the beauty of cocktails, is that it's one thing to say, like, yes, I love steak. I love a great barbecued steak. It's grilled, it's got that smoky seared. But then it's like, okay, well, what if you took that meat and you turned it into a hamburger, or you turn it into a roast? And with the roast, it's like, well, it's a tougher cut of meat, so let's braise it with all of these different things. We've got some onion and some garlic, and we've got all these other high quality ingredients. And it's still a roast, it's still beef, it's still steak, it's still whatever it is. But it's like it's that one thing that you've taken this high quality ingredient and you've made it more than the sum of the parts.
Yep.
It's still steak, and you taste the steak, but it's steak plus. And I think that that's what I love about a really well crafted cocktail, is that it's whiskey plus.
Yep.
Right. You have
Absolutely.
things that complement the whiskey,
So
but it doesn't overpower the whiskey.
So Sarah, as somebody who really was more of a, I drink my whiskey neat, and I love my whiskey neat, and give me whiskey neat. How do you feel like as somebody who's now, you're like, oh, well, I played with this and this and this and this. How do you feel about it? What's your experience been as somebody who's kind of coming to it from that perspective?
I'm going to say this first off. We're on for an hour and 50 minutes
50.
now?
Yeah.
50 minutes. Okay. We usually do an hour and a half or so with, doggy, with our Whiskey Crusaders on Monday night. And we drink our whiskey neat the whole time. I have made, 3 or 4 different cocktails, and I have more of a buzz on right now than I do on a Monday night live stream when I'm drinking 12 whiskeys neat. So there's that. So for me, if I'm looking to have a drink that I enjoy and get my buzz on and, party sense, cocktails are going to be the way I'm going to go from now on, because I did find a few that I liked this evening, thanks to Heather. I would have never experimented if we didn't have you on here and go through some stuff with us. So I guess ultimately, Teresa, your question of whiskey neat, and that's how I drink it. I'm open to other suggestions and trying new things, of course, because how are you going to know otherwise? And I think I will, get some of these things that I've learned that I like with my whiskey and keep them on hand for when the mood does strike for me to drink something other than just some neat whiskey. It's definitely been an eye opener for me, who has always just been neat. Maybe a drop of water here and there, drinker. So it's definitely been an eye opener for me tonight. And I am so happy that we had you on so that we could, do this experimenting and find some new things.
Right. Gretchen, how about you?
Huh?
Gretchen, how about you? What did
Yeah, you've been quiet for too
sort
long.
of been fairly quiet this evening? Has Josh been experimenting for you, or
No, I'm so new to cocktails that I've just been kind of listening to the Psalms chat and kind of getting some ideas. I'm still somewhat young in my whiskey and especially my bourbon journey, so I've just kind of taking mental notes on it and learning from you all. So, and getting inspired to go to Bourbon Women's next year. So,
Yay! I'm so excited.
And Sam, I mean, you came to whiskey almost kicking and screaming. You're the whole. I mean, in terms of YouTube intro videos, the I whiskey she wines. I mean, you need an H in that wines. You really do. You're
muted, honey. You're muted.
Whiskey sort of as a you've had somebody dragging you into it. Cocktails as an experience. What does that mean for someone like you?
Sam, you're muted.
Fuck, I forgot. So now because Baxter was down here, I was talking to my dog. So I've never tried any. To be fair, I've never had an old fashioned. I've never had a Manhattan ever. I have no idea what it tastes.
It's crazy.
I know. So now I want to. Like, they were intimidating because they sound fancy, and I'm not fancy. I'm a dumb
You
blonde.
are so fancy. Oh my
I am
goodness,
fucking
you're
not
so fancy.
Oh, girl.
Do you drink your drink with your
They're
pinky
so
out?
easy.
You have
So easy.
No, I'm currently drinking peach whiskey out of a Minnie Mouse cup. Like, come on. So
Hey, Minnie Mouse is the shit, okay?
she is the shit. She is like the ultimate boss
She's
babe,
the
right?
bitch of Disney, man. Queen bee.
So, so now I want to try all these things. I want to make the fucking cocktail in the bottle and take it somewhere and be like, yeah, I brought you a cocktail. What up, bitches? Because it's going to look
They will love you.
I know what I'm doing,
Love
but I
you.
don't. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I know how to pour shit in a bottle. So it's going to happen. Like, I'm so excited now.
You're going to have to watch the playback.
I am.
I'm
Oh, I'll
just
totally
happy to
watch
be
the
able
playback
to.
because I
tell
probably
you
won't
guys.
remember anything here in a minute. So
It's okay. There's a replay. You're good. You're good.
there's a replay. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that you guys are willing to experiment. I mean, I usually work with people who are I work with the bourbon women, so very spirit forward, very much bourbon neat, bourbon on the rocks at most.
They're
And
probably more refined than us too.
I don't know that that's exactly true because there are people who like to be able to taste their bourbon, but there are women who love their cocktails. I mean, we have women who really, really prefer cocktails over bourbon neat or bourbon on the rocks, and that's fine. I don't care how you drink your bourbon; just drink your bourbon.
Just drink
You
it.
know, just drink it. I don't care. Yeah. So the bourbon women are all about the culture of drinking bourbon. They're not about drinking it one way or another. They're just about drinking bourbon in general. And if it takes a cocktail to get you into drinking bourbon, I'll make you a great cocktail. So I think that if you can, and I have had tons of friends that I want to introduce to bourbon, and I have to do it through cocktail because they are not ready to taste it on the rocks, to taste it neat. They're not ready to really drink the bourbon and appreciate the finish and the mouthfeel and the way it goes down. They're just not ready. And I think cocktails are an excellent way to start that. And so I think for a lot of my friends, a lot of my family members that I've introduced to bourbon, it's been through cocktails. And if I can get a couple people to start drinking bourbon through cocktails or whiskey or rye through cocktails, I love rye. That's the way I'm going to do it. And that's the way that we should do it because we're all about getting other people to drink whiskey. All five of us. We want people to enjoy whiskey the way we do. If it starts with cocktails, that's great. If it becomes, whiskey on the rocks, that's great. If it becomes whiskey neat, even better. But for us to be able to enjoy cocktail, we know we want more high proof cocktails. For someone who's maybe not so well versed in bourbon cocktails or whiskey cocktails, maybe something that's 80, 90, or 100 proof is a better way to start for cocktails. So, and honestly, I start with What's something I like that I really know I love the taste of, like derby pie, chocolate, bourbon, and pecan. What's something else I like? Chocolate orange and, whatever. If you think about I have a really great recipe for s'mores old fashioned, which is you basically go.
Oh, girl.
It's crazy. Okay, so you take a bunch of marshmallows. Sorry, my cats are going crazy in the other room. You take a bunch of marshmallows that have been charred nice and well, right? So outside in your like fire pit, inside with your kitchen torch, whatever, put them in basically in a bath with some regular simple syrup recipe, and it will give you the taste of, and what you'll do is you'll cook it for a couple minutes until it all dissolves. Go ahead and filter it through, and you'll get the taste of the char from the marshmallow s'more, and you'll get the sugar from the marshmallow and from the actual simple syrup. And you can use that to create an actual old fashioned. So you have a s'mores old fashioned. So there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways you can actually bring in the taste of things that you know you love and actually be able to create an old fashioned that you love as well. And you can introduce that to your friends.
That sounds really good.
That sounds
It's
so
good.
good.
I'm not gonna lie. It's so good.
Oh,
Okay. Well, I don't know about y'all, but we've been at this for almost 2 hours.
Yes.
yeah.
And I'm finally remembering to drink the water. I'm going to push, the Aqua H20. It's really awesome. It's great meat. We're on the rocks. However you choose to enjoy the Aqua H20.
Hydration is important.
It is. It makes getting up tomorrow so much easier. Because I'm cocktails in.
4 cocktails
She's
in.
had 3 cocktails. I'm not sure what's going on. She's had 3 at least.
And high proof, very spirit forward cocktails. So that is going to hurt without what? No. Whiskey Crusader Sarah.
No, that's not me.
Oh,
That's Matt.
Is that Matt?
I signed in under whiskey and lipstick.
Yeah.
That's Matt.
Well, then Matt, go fuck yourself.
Teresa's a bit fuzzy.
Oh my!
I am beyond buzzed. All of a sudden I kind of went from being, I feel really, really happy right now to holy shit, I think I'm drunk.
That's what cocktails will do for you.
That is
Beautiful,
what
do it.
cocktails do to you. So remember that you only need 2 or 3 cocktails.
Right.
Don't take that.
Of 4 to 5 half-ounce whiskey pours.
Right. Public service announcement from Teresa.
Yes, public
You
service
can drink
announcement.
more whiskey.
Thank you for joining us. This has been a great evening.
I want to hear.
Drinking. Please do not drive. Phone a friend. Call a cab. Make sure that you're at home in your basement and 5 steps from the bedroom.
So before we sign off for the evening, I would like to hear from Heather here. Give us all your info. Tell us where you're from, what you have, where people can find you on
Tell
a
us
regular
your life,
basis.
Heather.
Sure, I do have a life. Yes, actually, so cocktailcontessa.com is my my blog. So you can go to that site and you can see a little bit more information about me. You can have a link to the blog that'll list you all the different cocktails that I come from. The other thing you can do is cocktail_Contessa at Instagram.com. So at cocktail_Contessa at Instagram.com. That will be the majority of my new cocktail recipes, my bourbon adventures, my whiskey adventures, anything like that will be under Instagram, cocktail_Contessa.com. I've had a few cocktails. So that will be kind of where you can, exactly, you know how that is. So that will be where you can find me.
In the description too. So
Exactly. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
So Heather, you actually created a new YouTube channel for yourself
Yes.
for this live stream, did you not?
I did, and I believe it's cocktail underscore. I'm not exactly sure of the actual live link because I think I have to have a certain number of followers to do that.
Right.
But if you actually follow me on Instagram at cocktail underscore Contessa, once that actually, I'm not sure exactly what needs to happen on the Instagram side
You
or
have
the
to have
YouTube side.
content on YouTube. You have to have content on YouTube.
Okay.
So we just started our channel,
We
and
can
this
link
is
in the
the
description.
content we have. And so now it'll be searchable.
Okay.
So once you put out a new video,
Perfect.
you will be searchable.
So we
So-
can
Okay.
put a link in the comments as
you
well,
put
right?
the name, and I will link
That
it
is-
in the comments for you.
Okay, perfect. And
We
yeah,
actually have, this is a new channel for us too, isn't it? I mean, we've always done, this is our third whiskey and lipsticks, but it's really, we did the first couple under the iWhiskey
Whiskey
She Wines
Right.
umbrella, which is
Okay.
it's great. Thank you, Sam, so much for
I loved having you guys. It was awesome. I'm
hosting
glad that we've been
us.
able to make our own thing now, though. I mean, it doesn't matter, obviously, to me. I don't care.
At least once a month, we are going to put out a live video. And since it is once a month, we're going to probably go for about 2 hours. We're going to, get as much content out there as we can for the month.
Because we're women and we talk.
Yeah.
We talk.
Like for guys, you guys are welcome. The men are always welcome, but we're women and we talk and we just do not put a cork in it.
We have something special lined up for next month, but I'm not going to let you know what it is until I have 100%.
We need 100% confirmation, but it's going to be, you're going to want to share this shit. You're going to want people to watch it because.
Shit, do I know what it is?
I don't even know what it is.
I don't even think I know what it is.
I mean, let's act like we all know what it is and act like it's a big fucking deal.
Okay, what?
It's such a thing. You guys want to be here for it.
Yep.
It's fucking cute, okay?
I'll be here for it.
Click the thing to like, share, subscribe, etc., etc. Watch our Instagrams, watch our Facebook. Because is everybody on Facebook? Who's on Facebook? Put your hand up.
Sam, raise your hand.
Hey! Okay, so everyone on Facebook, look for Whiskey Crusaders, Texas Whiskey Life, Canadian Whiskey Smith, iWhiskey She Wines, Cocktail Contessa.
Hold on.
Holy
Really
crap, for the
quick.
win! Like,
Bobby Zeller. Fuck you.
totally.
That's all.
Heather, thank you so much for joining in with our crazy. I'm really drunk right now.
My pleasure. I will just
Thank you so much,
my
Heather.
pleasure.
We want to have, I think we should have her back on.
Absolutely.
She needs to tell us, what do we do in the spring? Or maybe we do
I
it
think
in
so,
the
too.
Christmas time.
Just
I'll be back on when we get ready to go to Bourbon Women's.
Well,
yes, absolutely.
Kinda
yes,
like
yes.
Yeah,
Heather,
kind of like
you
what
are-
to do and what not to do at Bourbon Women.
It'll also
Absolutely.
give us
I
a
got
little
you
bit
handled.
you're also you're a bourbon steward, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just got my
Is that you?
certification as an executive bourbon steward. Yeah.
So we need to get you into the sommelier program too.
Okay.
Maybe
That's
to-
nice.
I actually am
Partial.
looking at that bourbon steward program because that looks pretty amazing, but it's in Kentucky. I mean, you can do it online, but damn.
Don't
you
not
have
you
to
definitely
go to
already
Kentucky.
Jesus. We're not
Holy shit.
Hilljacks.
If you come to Kentucky, I will steward you around Louisville so that you know where to go. So don't
Heather,
worry
are
about
you
it.
in Kentucky?
I am. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. Yes.
Girl, I'm in Northern Kentucky.
What?
Let's hang out. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You
I'm-
guys
I'm
Same
5 minutes
friend.
from Cincinnati. We'll talk in a minute.
Whiskey is about bringing people together. Like
It always does.
there
It always
there are
does.
no strangers. I mean, I have said this for as long as I can remember. There are no strangers in whiskey. There are only friends that you haven't met yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So we are now at 9:06. So we've been going for just over 2 hours. It totally does not feel that way.
No, because that's what happens.
I mean, anybody in the comments can totally comment on that. But it really doesn't feel like it's been 2 hours. I love hanging out with you guys so much. but I guess we should probably let people
Yep.
go and
People go to bed.
Sunday
Get
night.
back to Sunday. I'd just like to throw in there, because tomorrow is Veterans Day, and just a
Yes.
giant thanks to all the veterans out there for everything that you have done. And you know, there you go.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
Copy.
Thank you all. If you are watching, if you've watched the playback, whatever, thank you for everything.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody in the chat, everybody that's come in for to watch tonight and hang out. We really appreciate it. Again, look for us next month. We will post when we are getting close to when we have our live stream coming, and we will let you know as soon as we get it down in stone what we're
Down and
having. Cocktails.
I need another cocktail. Apparently, I didn't finish. Holy crap!
Cheers,
I
everybody.
melted.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to everybody.
Cheers to everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Like, subscribe.
Thank you, Heather.
Blah, blah, blah.
Thanks, Heather.
Good night, you guys.
Night, night.
Thanks, Brad. Woo!